I want to welcome you to today's morning broadcast, where we try as much as possible to look at the news making the round across the world. Like we've always said, this is a youth organization. BHF is a youth organization with the sole purpose and motive of trying as much as possible to educate our youth and also to speak on issues that has to do with the youth generally, on issues that has to do with the youth, and can be able to inform them, educate them, and also enlighten the youth. We've always said in this program now that we're living in a world that is highly busy with a lot of distractions. There are some of the issues that one would not have got involved in if I had the opportunity. Then there was no social media anyway, so you don't really have the opportunity to receive much of information and to be fully educated. It's a common knowledge that once you are not informed, when you are not informed, you become deformed. You must be first and foremost informed. It is based on the information that you receive, positive information. That's what I'm trying to say, not just all information. Some informations are negative informations. Except you are positively informed, there is the 100% tendency that you begin to take the wrong decisions. So I've always said here, it's something that is common knowledge. I've always said that that life is a product of decisions. Life is 100% a product of decisions. And those decisions are based on informations that you've received. Which means you must be well informed. Except you are well informed, there's the 100% tendency that you will become deformed. And you become deformed because you will now be taking the wrong decisions. And those are the effect of those wrong decisions is what we finally produce being deformed. So we try to make sure that we pass balanced information to our youths across the world so that they can be able to take reasonable decisions that will help them to stay relevant in their time. I've always believed that if you want to build a strong nation, you must have strong youths, well-informed youths, because the youths are the future of every nation. The youths are the future of every nation. So for us to be able to have a strong tomorrow, we must have a strong youth. And the only way you can have a strong youth is a well-informed youth. And I'm so happy because we still have one or two youths in Nigeria that are highly informed and also staying strong. Let me just say briefly regarding what is going on in Gaza. On a daily basis on our program, we look into Gaza, America, and Nigeria, and also other parts of the world. There's, like we said before, there's a ceasefire agreement now between Hezbollah and the IDF. They both agreed on a ceasefire on paper. They've not come out openly to announce the ceasefire separately, but they have agreed in principle for a ceasefire. They both sides have agreed to follow, to implement the American ceasefire arrangement that was put forward by the U.S. But again, even with the ceasefire agreement, there is still the war is still going on. It's even intensifying. As at yesterday, over 250 missiles were shot by Hezbollah into Israel. We thank God for the Israeli defense. The Israeli air defense system that has played a major role throughout this crisis. Imagine if 250 missiles were to to land into Israel, how devastating it would have been. Devastating it would have been. You know, I've always said here that most wars are fought and won through wisdom. Through wisdom. And again, the IDF has also pounded Beirut, pounded the Hezbollah center, the area where Hezbollah have a lot of their command structures and offices. In fact, that is even the area where the Hezbollah leader, Nasrallah Hassan, was killed, the Deraa region. They've targeted a lot of places, dozens and dozens and dozens of Hezbollah sites have been targeted by the IDF. And Beirut now, which is the capital of Lebanon, is under intense attack. Intense attack. You know, the agreement has been signed. I mean, they've all agreed for ceasefire, but the war is still on. The war has not stopped. I believe so much that they are trying to exhaust everything possible before they finally agree to war, because the Israelis themselves are pounding the place seriously. They've leveled a lot of places, leveled a lot of buildings. You know, people have been killed, have been injured, properties have been destroyed. You know, I said before that it is to the interest of Lebanon that they push Hezbollah out of Lebanon. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy, fully funded by Iran. It's a terrorist organization fully funded by Iran. You know, so we must do everything possible to see that this whole thing is stopped. We don't need this crisis anymore. This crisis must stop so that people can be able to return back to their homes, and life can come back to normal, both in southern Lebanon and also northern Israel. As we've known, over 80,000 citizens, Israeli citizens, have been evacuated from northern Israel because of the continuous barrage of Hezbollah missiles and UAVs and rockets. And Israel, in retaliation, have continued to pound southern Lebanon and even moving to the capital, and also once in a while targeting up north of Lebanon. And some of the terms of the agreement is that there will be a pause for 60 days. One of the terms of the agreement is that between the American proposal, one of the terms of the American proposal for this agreement to ceasefire is that there will be a pause for 60 days. 60 days. And also, during that 60 days, the IDF will withdraw from Israel. Remember, we withdraw from Lebanon. Remember, the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, they are currently inside Lebanon. And after almost a year of continuous attack by Hezbollah, the IDF had no choice than to invade Lebanon, which they did. They are currently in Lebanon. They have moved and moved. They keep moving deeper. They've gone almost 8 miles, if I'm not mistaken, into Lebanon already. So they have to move out their troops and everything. Within that 60 days, they have to move out of Lebanon. The IDF has to move out. The Hezbollah terrorist organization too has to move out beyond the Litani River within those 60 days. And also those inhabitants of the northern Israel and southern Lebanon will now be allowed to come back to their homes respectively. And the Lebanese army will now move to create a buffer zone between those Litani River and the border, the border. So these are the terms of the agreement, and we sincerely hope that in the next 1 or 2 weeks they'll begin to implement the agreement so there can be peace in that region. Because currently the fighting is still going on, and the fighting also in the same thing with. But one of the features of this agreement right now is that there is a total separation. And initially, the Hezbollah initially were saying that they will not enter into agreement with the IDF until the war in Gaza ends. But currently, because of the continuous pounding of the IDF against the Hezbollah locations across Lebanon, their rhetorics have changed. They are no more talking about a ceasefire in Gaza anymore. They are no more talking about that, because initially the Hezbollah were saying until there's a ceasefire in Gaza, there will not be ceasefire in Lebanon. But that's two different things entirely. They don't need any ceasefire in Gaza to implement a ceasefire in Lebanon. That is part of what they've agreed now. So we sincerely hope that these things will be implemented. But one of the contentious issues, which is still presented by the IDF, is that they must have, included in the agreement, is to have a free hand to be able to move into Lebanon anytime Hezbollah renege on this agreement, and which they will do. This is not the first time. I mean, these are not a conventional army, they are a terrorist organization. They don't believe in the law. So except that agreement is fully sealed up, then be rest assured that this ceasefire will not last. Because the only people that can enforce it is the IDF. The Lebanese army will not be able and cannot be able to enforce it, because they are not as equipped as Hezbollah. So they will not be able to have that strength and that mind to be able to enforce it. And the United Nations Organization Peacekeeping Force cannot be trusted to also implement it. So because already we have the United Nations Peacekeeping Force there already for this number of years, and yet they were not able to enforce it. They were not able to enforce it because they have interests. And part of their interest is to see how they can wipe out the Jewish state, the only Jewish state. I've always been saying that people, once you are not, you don't read history, you don't know history, you don't understand history, and you don't follow history, very soon you will be casualty to what happened and what has been happening in the past. This is not the first time that the Jewish nation is having crisis of wanting to be eliminated. The Jewish nation has always been target of elimination for years, for thousands of years. This is not the first time. This is not the first time at all. I mean, the Persian, which is Iran now, they try their best. Iraq also, King Nebuchadnezzar also tried his best to see that the Jewish state was eliminated. Then after that also came, like I said, the patient when the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego they were all picked up, kidnapped, and taken to the Persian state then, and they tried to eliminate the Jews. These things were going on continuously until Cyprus came in, and Cyprus was the Persian king, a Persian king, which is now Iran. Cyprus then was an Iranian king. Funny enough, the battle between Israel and Hezbollah now, which is sponsored, financed, and masterminded by Iran, is very strange, because Iran and Israel, there was a time they were very close, very, very close. So it was a Persian king called Cyprus, that was able to broker a deal and returned and told the Jewish state to go back and build their temple, and cause some of the Jews to return. So it has been on. It has been on. There was a time again, Haman, also with his cohorts, also tried to eliminate the Jewish state. At the end of the day, it was Haman that was killed. The Jewish state exists. So the Jewish state have gone through many attempts by nations to ensure that they are eliminated. The Roman Empire came in. The Roman Empire was one of the most evil empires that has ever existed under the sun. the Roman Empire came in and also tried to destroy the Jewish state, pull down the temple, and sent quite a number of people, burnt everywhere, and sent the Roman Empire tried to destroy the Jewish state after holding the Jews captive for years and years and years. Jews was held captive under the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire did a lot of terrible things. In fact, it was during those periods of captivity under the Roman Empire that Jesus Christ was born, during that time. And so that's why till today there are quite a number of Jews that don't believe that Jesus is the Savior, because what they were expecting was a very powerful king, a powerful ruler that would be able to, a lot of insects and the rest trying to fly. And they did everything possible then to see that the Jewish state was completely annihilated and destroyed, and scattered. They took them away captive and the rest, scattered the Jewish nation. They scattered them to different parts under the world. But again, there was also a declaration that even though they are scattered around the earth, that the Jewish state will come back together again as a nation. And so for over 2,000 years, the Jewish state nation was scattered. They took them away captive. They took them as far as Iran, as far as Iraq. They took them to various parts of the world. They were scattered. They were in Europe, they were in Asia, they were in Germany. The Jewish state was scattered. And over 2 years, but one great thing there is that in these 2 years of the non-existent as a nation of the Jewish state, they still were able to maintain and keep their identity. Like I said, over the years, if you look at history, attempt has been made for the past 3,000, 4,000 years to see that the Jewish state was completely annihilated right from inception. Right from inception, the battle has been that the Jewish state must not stay. But funny enough, all those nations that have been trying, and those kings and kingdoms that rose up and tried to destroy the Jewish state, they are all gone. They are not in existence. Those kingdoms are all gone. The Persian kingdom is gone. Iraq kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar is completely gone. Ahasuerus also, Naaman, and during the time of Naaman, when he wanted Haman, when he wanted to annihilate and destroy the Jewish state, Haman is dead and gone. The Roman Empire also came in. The Roman Empire tried to destroy the Jewish state and tried to mess them up seriously. But as we are talking right now, the Roman Empire is completely gone. The Roman Empire was so powerful that they controlled the world. But today, the Roman Empire is dead, and there's 100% likelihood that the Roman Empire will not rise again. It's dead and dead forever. So all those nations who have ganged up to destroy the Jewish state, one way or the other, they've been destroyed. And the Jewish state is still existing. I told you for about 2,000 years, there was nothing like the Jewish state because they were scattered around the world. But again, there was a declaration that the nation will be given birth to in a day. So after 2,000 years of non-existence of the Jewish state, in the year 1948, the Jewish state was reborn again in their land, in their original land. And their first prime minister then was David Ben-Gurion, who declared the Jewish state. And since 1948, immediately after the Jewish state was given birth to again, after 3,000 years of non-existence, immediately the Jewish state was given birth to. Listen to me, after over 2,000 years of non-existence, the first thing that welcomed them was the war, the Six-Day War, by the Arab nations. The Arab nations that surrounded Israel, both Egypt, Syria, and the rest, made up their mind that this small Jewish state will not exist. I'm talking about immediately they gave birth to the Jewish state. Not quite long, they were attacked in 1948. And strangely enough, this new nation that was just born, not even given birth to not even a year, they were able to defeat all the Arab states that fought against them. And they captured many more territories. The original territory that was given to Israel after the British mandate in Palestine was small. But after the war, they were able to capture Golan Heights. They capture what is now known as the West Bank, which is originally Judea and Samaria. That is the original name for that area, but now they converted it to the West Bank. So they captured those territories and they increased in their size. And remember, initially when the United Nations, when they were about creating the new states, the idea then was that they will have two-state solution. This two-state solution is not the first time. It has been there even before 1948. But the Palestinians refused, that they don't want the Jews at all. So the two-state solution that they are crying for now was formally proposed before the United Nations in 1948, and yet the Palestinians refused. I guess that nation, the state of Israel was created because of sympathy. That there is a need for us to have a Jewish state after what happened to the Jews in Europe, after what Hitler did to the Jews in Europe. Remember, over 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis under the leadership of Adolf Hitler. Not only in Germany, but in Poland and various parts of Europe. And Hitler became so ambitious that he wanted to colonize the world. He wanted to take over the world, and so he started the Second World War, trying to capture Europe. That was the ambition of Hitler then. But he tried and tried and tried. I thank God for both Russia, America, and Britain. They were able to, the Allied forces were able to repel the advances of Hitler and his men. But remember, before then, over 6 million Jews have been killed, and most of them in the gas chamber. They were burnt alive, killed and burnt alive in their millions. Some died of starvation. Some were given to wild dogs as food. And so they destroyed them. But after the Second World War in 1945, remember, before then, the land of Palestine was under the control of British. The British were in control of the Palestine then. And so the UN now agreed and said, look, we have to give these people, the Israeli, a nation. And thank God, everything worked in such a way that they restored back to Israel. They took them back to that land because that's where the Israelis were. As at that time, even throughout those periods, there was always a remnant of the Jews that were in their land. Even when they scattered the whole world, they were scattered around the world, there was always few people, few Jews, very, very few, that were occupying that land. They were occupying probably about between 5 to 10% of the land, while about 90% was occupied by the Palestinians, of the land, occupied by the Palestinians. But originally, the land belongs to the Jews, originally, before they were pursued out of that place by various kingdoms that came and made up their mind that they must destroy the Jewish state. I just try to lay down a background and to make you understand that this is not a new crisis. It's not as if it's there. This fight has been on for a very long time. In fact, the people we call the Palestine today, they were the Philistines of those days. And remember, there was this fight between the Israelis and the Philistines, where the giant of the Philistines then, Goliath, said, there's no need for us to fight. Just bring in somebody to come and fight me. And anybody that wins will take charge. And there was this fight between David and Goliath, and David was able to defeat Goliath, and the Jews were able to invade Philistines, and they ran away, and the rest. So there's been this front and back battle. Even the time of Samson. Samson was always going to the Philistines to have crisis with them, trying to pursue them, and the rest. So they've been neighbors, but they've been fighting neighbors. They've not been fighting. They've not been close. So after the Israelis were captured by Nebuchadnezzar and took them away captive, burnt the city, destroyed the temple again, and took them captive. So the Jews were scattered. The 12 tribes of Israel were completely scattered. They're scattered. Some were in Iran, some were in Iraq. They were distributed around the world. But like I said, one of the greatest miracles there is that they still preserve their identity. They still preserve their identity. But like I said, Cyprus also came in, and Cyprus tried to restore them back to their land. It happened again in the time of when, before Jesus came, the Romans took over, like I said, and so the Romans were in charge. So after the war against the massive killing of the Jews by Hitler, the United Nations then agreed that they need to give Israelis a land of their own. So they said, okay, let us increase this land so that at least 30% of it can be occupied by the Jews, and the Palestinians will be able to take the remaining one. In fact, then they were advocating for a two-state solution. But the Palestinians, they felt there's no point, they don't want a two-state solution. They had this group of terrorists that were there already, they said never. But David Ben-Gurion was declared the independence of the Jewish state in 1948 after United Nations endorsed the Jewish state, created again the Jewish state. And the Jews from all over the world returned back to their original land. So this land in question is not that. It's not that of the Palestine. The land belongs to the Jews. It's like you have a real estate, you have properties, and you decide. Some people came in. Maybe at the end of the day you were not around. Your children were not around. They are living abroad or something, and after some time you're already very, very old and you die, and your children came back to collect your land. Then those who have been staying there illegally will now insist that they are the owners of the land because they've been staying there for 50 years. The number of years you have been staying there does not make you the owner of the land. The land has an original owner. So that's where the crisis began, and that's where the crisis is on now. So that's why all this anti-Semitic tendency that is going around the world is because the people are not well informed. You begin to see people saying, oh, the Israelis, they are occupiers. They are not occupiers. They are the original owner of the land. The land belongs to the Jews from beginning. The land has been theirs for the past 4,000 years. The land has been their own for the past 4,000 years. The land does not belong to the Palestinians or the Philistines. It belongs to the Jews for over 4,000 years now. They have series of crises that move them out of the land, but that does not mean that they are not the owner of the land. They have archaeological evidence to show that the land belongs to them. There is no one archaeological evidence to show that that land belongs to the Palestine, not one. But every day we begin to see more and more archaeological evidence to show that the land is originally that of the Jews. So they settled in their land to the British mandate. These 6 Arab nations came to fight them, came to welcome them through warfare, and they were able to defeat them. They defeated the Arab nations that came. In 1973, there was another Yom Kippur War again, the Jews defeated. So it has been on, and since then, the Palestinians decided to use terrorist acts as a means to see how they can get back the land or to make the place ungovernable. It has been on for a very long time, even to the time of PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization. They were there for a very long time. They've been trying to negotiate for peace between the Palestine and the Jews, and it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. In fact, there is no evidence, even in the Quran, that points that that land belongs to the Palestine. Because at the end of the day, they said the third most holy site in Islam is in the Palestine. It's in that land, Jerusalem. Jerusalem belonged to the Jews. Jerusalem has been the eternal capital of Israel for a very long time. It's about 3,000 years now since over 3,000 years now since David reigned as king in Jerusalem, in Israel, and Jerusalem was the capital. So Jerusalem has been the capital of Israel for over 3,000 years now, and they have a lot of evidence, archaeological evidence to show that the land belonged to the Jews, and Jerusalem was the capital of Israel for over 3,000 years. There is nothing to show that the land belonged to the Palestine. There is nothing in the Quran, nothing at all in the Quran that points to that the land, that most spiritual site, holy site of Islam, is in Palestine. I don't think there's anywhere in the Quran where Palestine was ever mentioned. Talk of having the third holiest place in Jerusalem. Nothing like that. So it has been the eternal capital of Israel for a very long time. So, but what they're trying to do is to see that they have the entire region completely Islamized. And the only way they feel they can achieve this is to see that Israel is moved out completely from that place. I have this feeling, I might be wrong, that if Israel was 100% an Islamic country, the war would not have intensified like this. The land does not belong to the Palestine. And so what Iran is trying to advocate for is not just because they love the Palestine. They are trying to see how they can capture more territory so that they can have a caliphate, an Islamic caliphate, a region that is made of 100% Islam in the Middle East. So the battle that Israel is fighting now is not just for its sake. It's also for other Arab nations like Saudi Arabia and Jordan, the moderate Arab nations. The Islam is made up of the Sunnis and also of the Shiites. And the brand of Islam that Iran is operating is the violent type of Islam that believes in fighting and killing and jihad and jihad and jihad and jihad. And so even Iran himself, I remember when the Houthis, when they were having issue Yemen fighting with Saudi Arabia, who was supplying the arms? It was Iran. So if you leave Iran alone, they want to take over Saudi Arabia also. Just the way the Russians are trying to say how they can take as much as Europe as possible. That's why they invaded Crimea, and now they try to invade Ukraine and the rest. The same tendency. The same thing. It's the same thing that Iran is trying to do. The only hindrance to Iran taking over the entire Middle East is because of Israel. So both the moderate Islam should be very happy with what Israel is doing. We saw footage, we saw clip of interview by the women in Gaza that were praying and hoping that Israel should be able to eliminate Hamas completely so they can have peace. Because Hamas himself is a terrible terrorist organization that is even against the Palestine residents. The Gaza residents are not safe under Hamas. Just the way the Lebanese citizens are not safe under Hezbollah. I told you their brand of Islam is a jihadist type of brand of Islam. And so it's not just about land, it's about dominance. It's about dominating, controlling. And the Israelis has been a thorn in their flesh. You ask yourself, how come that Iran is taking this thing personal, that they are spending so much money? They are willing to risk many things, supplying arms, supplying cars, spending billions, all to eliminate Israel. The land does not concern them. They are not sharing boundary. But they see Israel as an obstacle in the Middle East. An obstacle they feel should be dealt with. They thought they want to eliminate Israel immediately. The way Russia felt it can take over Ukraine immediately. When Putin entered into Russia and said in the next 2-3 weeks, he was thinking that the maximum 1 month, 2 months, he would capture the entire Ukraine. But unfortunately for him, over 3 years now, over 1,000 days of war, they've not been able to capture Ukraine. And that's the same thing with Iran. After years, since 1979 till now, with all the money spent on financing terrorism, building up the ring of fire surrounding Israel, they've not been able to defeat Israel till now. And I believe so much that one of the biggest mistakes that Iran will do is to attack Israel again. Because so far their air defense system has been systematically downgraded. And so they are now naked defensively. Iran is naked. And so any attempt to want to attack Israel again, I believe that the IDF once and for all will deal a major blow on Iran. In fact, it's because of their jihadist tendency. That's why it's very risky. It's risky to the world and it's risky to Israel for Iran to acquire nuclear weapon. Giving nuclear weapon to a terrorist group, to a terrorist nation, a nation that sponsors terrorism, is very dangerous. Because you can wake up one morning and they blast it off. We are talking about people that don't have value for life. People that have been brainwashed their citizens to believe that even if you die, as long as you are fighting for Allah, you will go to heaven. Even if you kill and rape, there are 72 virgins. No matter the evil you do, as long as you do it in the name of saying you are doing it for Allah. That is their version. But I thank God for a place like Saudi Arabia, Jordan. These are peaceful people. Kuwait. These are peaceful people, loving people. And I pray that normalization of relationship that started with the first term of Donald Trump in office as president will continue now that he's back between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is operating one of the most peaceful form of Islam. Peaceful, very, very peaceful form of Islam. Extremely difficult. It's far, very far from the kind of Islam that Iran is operating. Very far. It's not the same. The crisis is beyond what the United Nations can solve. There are some people that believe, and I also believe, that the crisis is highly spiritual. It's a crisis that has been ordained to stay, that will remain like that till the end of creation. Because for over 4,000 years ago, that crisis has been on between Israel and Gaza. It has been there. It has been there. They've been fighting it for a very long time. It has not ended. Instead, it's getting worse. In the 19th century, it was worse with hijack. Remember the hijack during the 1972 Olympics or so, where the Israelis were hijacked in Munich in Germany. They were hijacked. I mean, they were just coming fresh out of the Holocaust. And then Mayor Golden Meir was the prime minister. She was the prime minister of Israel then. When the plane was hijacked, they wanted to, the Israelis wanted to step in, but the Germans said no, they will handle it. So they tried to see how they can. The Palestinians made their demands, but the Germans tried to see how they can storm the place and set them free. The Israelis that were held hostage. But immediately the terrorists saw what the Germans were trying to do. They blew up the aircraft. They blew up everything, and they were killed. Okay, it was terrible because they just came out fresh from Holocaust, and that was when Golden Meir authorized the IDF to begin to eliminate the Palestinian leadership in Europe. Started going one after the other. It was a serious crisis there. So this whole issue has been there. So the second coming of Trump, trying to see how we can still continue the two-state agenda, it will not work. It will not work not because the Israelis don't want to live in peace. It will not work because the Hamas terrorist organization, this terrorist organization, that is their ideology, that is their hope, that is their aim. That is their belief. They believe so much that Israel must be wiped out from that place. That's why they keep using the phrase from the river to the sea. So it's not about living in peace. What the Hamas and Hezbollah want is that Israel must live there. They are not talking about living in peace. The Israelis are prepared to live in peace. The Israelis, even before October 7th, the Israelis have tried everything possible for them to live in peace. They normally come to Israel for work. Even Yahya Sinwar, the masterminder of October 7th, when he had cancer, he was treated. When he was in the Israeli prison and he had cancer of the brain, he was treated by Israeli doctors. So most Palestinians, they benefit from the hospitals in from the hospitals in Israel. They go to Israel to work. They enjoy medical facility in Israel. Some of the families on both sides have developed close bonds that they live together. Some of them even go to Israel to school. So the Israelis have actually been living in peace. And immediately they saw that the Gazans and the Jews were about to live in peace. Immediately they saw that Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the rest moderate Islamic State are trying to build up a relationship with Israel. That was when they strike. Because they don't want that peaceful coexistence. The only way the terrorist group Hamas and Hezbollah will continue to exist and remain relevant is to see that there is crisis. The Hamas terrorist organization is an organization that cannot exist without crisis. The only way they can exist is crisis. And so they have to start this crisis to see that they are able to completely shatter the peace plan. And so for us to have peace in that location is going to be very, very difficult. I can assure you, it's impossible. United Nations will try their best. Donald Trump will try his best. The Muslims, the Christians, they can be praying from now to eternity. There will never be peace in Gaza. There will never be peace in Gaza. No, there will not be peace between the Palestinians and the IDF. And the reason is because the ideology of the terrorist organization is that Israel must be wiped out. You see, you can only live in peace with a people that believe that you are supposed to exist. A people that believe that you are supposed to exist, a people that believe that you are supposed to be there. As far as they are concerned, Israel is not supposed to be in that location. They want them out of the Middle East by all means. So you can't have peace under this kind of situation. That's why the youths and the young men across the world must be educated, must be well informed. Because most of the younger generations, they don't know what is happening. It's just what they receive from social media, the manipulation they receive from social media, and the sites on various social media platforms that is being used by agents of this terrorist organization to begin to spread propaganda. That's why you see that there's protests in Canada, protests in UK, anti-Israel protests, and pro-Palestine protests happening in Europe. The reason why it's like that is because the young people don't know what is happening. They don't read history. They don't know that it has nothing to do with Israel. Israelis are not the aggressors here. The Israelis are trying to survive. What the Israelis are doing, the IDF is doing, is fight for survival. They are fighting to survive. They are not fighting because they want to fight. The Israelis are not fighting because they love fighting. They are fighting to survive. Their existence in that land is being threatened. Look, this group of terrorists sponsored by Iran does not want Israel in that place. So what Israel is doing is fighting to survive. That's why I believe so much that there must be a lot of enlightenment to enlighten the youth around Europe to understand that the Israelis are not the aggressors. I see them on TV, I see them on radio, I see them on TV, on social media, protesting and attacking Jewish installations and Jews because they keep saying the occupiers, the Israelis are occupying the land, they should leave. No, the Israelis are not the occupiers. The Israelis are the owners of the land. You must go back to history. You must go back to 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago, the land belongs to the Jews. They have evidence, archaeological evidence. It's not an Islamic land. It does not belong to the Palestine. Look, that land is not even mentioned in the Quran. There's no way a land that they think that is so important, that they claim is so important to Islam like that will not be mentioned in the Quran. It was not mentioned. Muhammad the Prophet didn't mention it. He didn't consider it as anything because it doesn't belong to them. The land belongs to the Jews. Jerusalem, that is divided into two now, occupied by the Palestinians and the Jews, the entire Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. It belongs to the Jews. Left to me alone, it was a mistake in the first place to have divided the capital of Israel. To have divided Jerusalem into two. Because Jerusalem is the city of David. That is where David had the capital of Israel when he was the king over 3,000 years ago. There are a lot of scientific evidence to prove that the land belonged to Israel and David was the king in that place. David was the king of Israel when Jerusalem was the capital, the complete capital, the complete Jerusalem. Jerusalem does not belong to the Palestinians. So having Palestine there as having part of where they build their mosques and the rest, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is built in East Jerusalem. It ought not to be there in the first place because Jerusalem as a whole belongs to the Jews. That's why I also thank God for Donald Trump, who was able to set up the capital of Israel right there. Right there. Set up the capital of Israel. Who was able to restore back the embassy of the American embassy back to Jerusalem. Because that is the capital. So right now, the embassy of America is in Jerusalem, the original capital of Israel. The original capital of Israel. The Palestinians have no stake. They have no stake in Jerusalem. Never a time, go back to history. Never a time did the Palestinians have anything to do with Jerusalem. Jerusalem has always been the eternal capital of the world. And it's unfortunate that a lot of states, countries, seems to be getting it wrong. And I will begin to see the sentiments from France, from Macron. It's very clear that Macron, as the president of France, seems to have bias against the Jews with his statement. Look at Justin Trudeau, the prime minister of Canada. Look at his statement. In fact, when the ICC said they issued an arrest warrant, the Canadian leadership was among the first that said it's going to implement it. Said it's going to implement it. And it's too unfortunate, it is sad, it is shameful, it is painful that Canada, a Western nation, we align with the ICC, masterminded by a few Islamists and people in the Middle East. But thank God that Trump is coming back, and Trump has said already that there will be sanctions against the ICC. We are talking about the ICC is not talking about the terrorist organization. You want to compare a state with a terrorist organization. Israel is not a member of the ICC, so they don't have jurisdiction over Israel. That statement that Netanyahu and Gallant should be arrested is a shameful statement coming from an arm of the UN, the ICC. The ICC. I'm surprised that when Hamas terrorists went into Gaza, went into Israel and killed 1,200 people, killed them, butchered them to pieces, and kidnapped about 250. I'm surprised that the ICC said nothing. The ICC did nothing. The UN said nothing and did nothing. The UN and ICC behaved as if they didn't know what was happening. It was when on the 8th of October, when Hezbollah started attacking Israel, the ICC did nothing. The UN did nothing. But it was immediately the Jews began to attack, to defend their nation. That was when ICC woke up from sleep. That was when UN woke up from slumber and began to issue all kinds of kangaroo statements and kangaroo judgment, which is shameful and painful. So I want to advise the youth around the world. Please, I want you to share this video. Not only share the video, I also want you to like and subscribe. Share it around the world so that the youth, especially in the Western world, will be able to know what is going on. That land belongs to the Jews. The land does not belong to Palestine. No, there's no evidence. Every historical evidence and also archaeological evidence point to the fact that the land belongs to the Jews. The Israelis are not occupying another person's land. The Israelis are on their own land. Please, I want us to get it right. I want the world to get it right. That the land does not belong to the Palestine. The land belongs to the Jews. I want us to spread, let the whole world know, Europe and America, share it with the children, because the social media is basically occupied by mostly youths. And these are the youths right now that are anti-Semitic, that are trying to kill the Israelis across the world, attacking the Jews in Europe. Look at what happened in Amsterdam. Look at what's happening in Canada. Look at what happened in Britain. Look at what was about to happen in France. And I'm completely disappointed in Europe for allowing such things to happen, because the Jews are fighting to survive. The world should stand in sympathy with the Jews. The world should stand in sympathy with the Jews, because the land belongs to the Jews. The land belongs to the Jews. And so the Jews are fighting to survive. What these guys want to do is to annihilate the entire Jewish race. They want to kill and destroy the entire Jewish race. And that should not be tolerated. The world should stand with Israel. It's unfortunate that, morally speaking, the world has gone morally bankrupt. Even the leaders of nations are becoming scared of their citizens, that they are beginning to take actions and in support of Hamas terrorist group. I wonder how a normal country, and people that are normal will begin to support a terrorist organization that went in to rape, to kill, and to kidnap and kill elderly, kill babies. There are some children right now that were captured, kidnapped, that are still in Hamas dungeon till today, over a year and 4 months. Some people have done birthday twice. Almost all of them have done birthday twice. Children. And nobody is coming to say that this, if it's your child, or if it's your wife, if it's your sister, if it's your father, your mother, how will you feel? You, young man, woman, that is busy moving around trying to destroy the Jews in Europe. If it was your sister that was kidnapped and raped, if it's your mother that was kidnapped and raped, if it's your father that was kidnapped and killed and beaten, if it's your kid brother, 9 months old, if it's your grandfather, 85 years old, 85 years old, because the Hamas terrorist group, they kidnapped 85 years old people, 87, 9 months old babies, 10 years old babies, 10 months old babies were kidnapped by Hamas, terrorist group, kidnapped by Hamas. What is happening to the world? Are we losing it in the world as humans? Are we losing it as humans? Our mental state, our value system. So the young people, the children, the youths that are embarking on this current attack against the Jews in Europe, search your conscience. I don't know how much you were given, but remember, everything is not about money. You are taking the wrong step, and history will remind you. History will remind you. It is what you wish for others that will happen to you and your descendants. If your family member were kidnapped, killed, and raped, if your grandfather was kidnapped, killed, butchered, if your mother was kidnapped, killed, raped, your sister, your kid's sister, how will you feel? as an individual, as a human, as a people, how will you feel? How will you feel as a people? How will you feel? I want to leave you with that today, because today we are focusing on the anti-Semitic rhetoric that is going around the world. There's a massive hatred for Jews, and it has to stop. This was how it was the build up to 1945, the war, the First World War. This was how it started by Hitler. This is how it started. Sentiments against the Jews. Sentiments, bad sentiments. They wanted the Jews eliminated and killed around Europe and America. Especially around Europe. The Jews were eliminated. This was how it started. Europe was no more safe for the Jews until Hitler began the Second World War, after killing millions and millions of Jews. And you begin to wonder and ask why the Jews are fighting aggressively. Because they know how it started and they needed to fight to defend it. They don't want to make the same mistake again, and I don't blame them. They don't want to make the same mistake again of 1941, of 1939, 1940, 41, 42, and thank God it ended in 45. Until date, the Jews have not recovered from the ashes of Second World War, where they were killed in millions and millions. Is the world going to stand by and watch again for another Holocaust? Is the world moving towards another Holocaust? Are we going to see a repeat of the same thing? Are we going to make the same mistake again that our parents, our great-grandparents made? Are we not going to stand and say, never again, we will never see another Holocaust in our time? I want you to think about these things. The Jews are also a people. Do you want to wipe them entirely from the race? Why do you want to annihilate the youths, the Jews? Why do you want to support the terrorist organization against the youths, against the Jews? We must stand up in support and insist and declare that the war in Gaza must cease. But first and foremost, they must return back the hostages. Both the dead body of the hostages and the living hostages must be restored back. They must be restored back. We must vow that in our time we are not going to see, we will not tolerate, we will not support what is happening now to the Jews in Europe. Anywhere you are hearing me now, please don't support it. It's not right. Today it is Israel. Tomorrow it might be your nation. Because terrorists have no friends. They have an ideology. And even if their family, their father, their mother is on the way, they will kill their mother to achieve their purpose. It's about ideology. It's not about human sentiment. They've been so brainwashed to make them believe that once they acquire that ideology, they should pursue the ideology, because even if they are killed in the process, they will end up in heaven with 72 virgins, which is another form of insanity. To believe such a thing will tell you the level of thinking and reasoning of some of these folks. So let's rise up with Israel. Let's rise up with the Jews. Let's stand with the Jews. Because standing for the Jews is standing for peace. Standing for the Jews is standing for humanity. Standing for the Jews is standing for a peaceful world. Don't be sentimental in your decision. Before you take any decision, look at it holistically. Reason, look at it and ask yourself, am I taking the right decision? This terrorist group don't want peace. This terrorist group want to wipe out Israel. And the Israelis are doing everything possible to see that they stay alive. The Jews want permanent peace. But this axis of evil, financed by Iran, don't want peace. Don't want peace. And to me, the world should stand for peace at a time like this. Enough of crisis in the Middle East. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Please subscribe again to BHF Movie on YouTube, this video channel. Subscribe to this channel. In the evening, again, we're looking at things that are very... We also look at some very important discussions, especially within Nigeria and the rest. Of recent, there's been a lot of backlash and attack against Davido, one of the most successful musicians in Nigeria, because he said our economy is in shambles. And I begin to wonder how people reason. The reality of the ground now is that our economy is poor. We are not seeing the result of the reforms. The reforms have made people poorer. So why are you attacking him? We cannot be a nation of lies, begin to deceive ourselves, endless hope that we are not seeing. People are dying and suffering of hunger. Is it when they bury everybody in Nigeria, that's when the hope will come? The people that are only enjoying this hope are those in government. The other citizen on the road is not benefiting any reforms. You are telling people stay and manage, and you are spending money. You are just grooving, going around the whole world with enjoying yourself. Those in government, politicians are enjoying themselves, while the average Nigerians are suffering. And you say they shouldn't complain when things are not working well? Abamana. Let's be reasonable. We'll discuss further about the Nigerian economy at the end of the month, and we'll talk about doing what is right as we begin to address the youth. We pray that the crisis in Edo State will stop, so that peace can also return to Edo State. Please subscribe. Tell people to subscribe. It's a youth organization, and we want to make sure we have a mandate, but at latest, by December 31st, we should have at least 3,000 subscribers. It's a youth group. Encourage the youth group, support the youth group by subscribing and telling others to subscribe. Share and tell others to subscribe. Let's build a strong country, a strong world, and a better life for all of us. Until we meet again in the evening, please take care of yourself. Do what is right. It's very, very important.